now I'd like to start with the personal recollections, starting from Senator LaValle. If you'd please.
What a great honor and a pleasure to be here today to talk about a person who I loved, as many of you loved. He had a great vision. He understood what that vision was, and it was, I think, our honor to travel the road with him. So we have a center, and you heard from the prior speaker some of the things that you want to accomplish. So I grew up in a household where my mother said to me and my brother, every day I want you to ask yourself, how are you being relevant? So my brother and I listened to our mother. We didn't quite understand what the hell she was talking about, being relevant. We learned thereafter. But what we need to do is to remind ourselves what was the mission that we were following, and to stay on that course. Mario Mignoni was a visionary, and he could be both gentle in telling us what that mission was, and sometimes not so gentle. But he was really a very dear friend, probably my best friend, but he was a visionary. He knew where we should be going, what road we should stay on. And I could tell you, I traveled with him throughout Italy on more than one occasion. And yes, he knew the road to stay on, but he also knew once in a while we had to get off that road and explore other venues. So we are indeed, when I look out at the audience here, we as a group will be good followers, leaders, to bring that message forward. And I know I as you do, miss his vision, his words, and we are lucky to have had a leader that we can follow and build upon his vision. And it's so great to see so many people here.
Okay. I hope I can make sense of all these papers I put down here, because I prepared them in a rainstorm where the electricity went off last night. So I'll see what develops here.
Speak right into the microphone.
Hello?
Very good.
Okay. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to express, to share with you all, to contribute my sentiments and thoughts on this occasion in remembering Mario, and to reveal how pleased, proud, and privileged I have been to have been affiliated with him since 1985. And that's the purpose of that board there, to show the news report that came out the day he gathered us all together and asked us to create this center. Clearly made evident in all the presentations and in the conversations exchanged these days, and just now from Senator LaValle, it has been an experience shared by many. As you will hear in a message from Rick Nasty, who could not be with us today, and whose enlistment as a generous supporter in the purposes of the center and an active participant in its governance for many years, Mario was most proud that he had accomplished his involvement and gotten his interest in the center. So I'll read a message that he has asked me to read because he's in London with his family celebrating where his daughter lives. But he wanted to be, I said I couldn't imagine having this memorial without somehow his presence was made evident. It is a genuine pleasure, these are Rick's words. It is a genuine pleasure to join in the many accolades bestowed on my great friend, Mario Mignoni. Mario Mignoni was an extraordinary man who accomplished extraordinary things, and he was a man I truly loved and admired. His life embodied the American dream. Emigrating from Italy at the age of 20, Mario worked his way through City University and obtained his doctorate from Rutgers. Mario was one of the most popular professors on campus. The large lecture halls were filled with students of Italian and non-Italian heritage, eager to learn about Italian culture, cuisine, politics, and prose. He was so proud of his adopted homeland, America, and made no secret of that pride in his public and private conversations. He made it his life's mission to connect in very tangible ways Italy to America. He went beyond his teaching to found the Center for Italian Studies, which in many ways was his fourth child, as well as the other one, Lois. Together with the support of his right-hand woman and wife, Lois, Mario, starting with few resources, built one of the most respected centers for Italian studies in the nation. Mario spearheaded fundraising activity for the first endowed chair in the College of Arts and Sciences. He aggressively sought private and public funding for the center and made it a tremendous success. Mario helped bridge the town gown gap that typically exists between a university and its surrounding town by inviting the community into the center for a whole host of activities, including the ever-popular Concorso d'Eleganza. Gave me a plug. On a personal level, Mario connected me with my roots and helped me discover my lineage back to a small town in Campania called Siano. And he was such a wonderful husband, father, brother, and uncle. Family was the touchstone of his life, and his family was the most important thing in his life. There are so many other things I could say about Mario, but the true testament will be his legacy and the example it must set for those entrusted to its future. That's you'll be glad to know that. My remarks and reminiscence in this dedication portion of the memorial will be to recollect more personal moments, encounters, incidents that simply I remember fondly and hope it tells you something about Mario and the relationship, what we shared here, what we knew together here. I would like you to know, these are things I'd like you to know about him and I think help you understand him as I did. I'm going to tell you about some incidents. There's one once at a lunchtime when Donna was the person that worked with us initially, and some of you remember her very fondly, and she could not be with us here today. But she was the Alicia before Alicia. We were together. You saw our little kitchen back there, and that's where we would retreat for a break. But Mario rarely came there because for Mario, his lunchtime, he liked to go home where he could gather fresh items from his garden or make one of his famous frittatas instead of doing the best you could here. But this time he came and he joined us, and he had a book in his hand. And he explained it was a text on which that he wanted to share with us. It was a text on which they based the movie Ciao Professore. Are any of you familiar with that? And he had the book that was put together. I looked this up. It was a set of compositions written by Neapolitan street children to their elementary school teacher, and it was called Let's Hope I Make It. And he found in that book something that he had to share. It just kind of spoke to him, and he was filled with joy at reading it. He had to read it out loud, and all I can remember is him standing there and this bubbling mirth and laughter coming out of him as he went through it. And in his Neapolitan, which was special, I always loved to hear him go back to his Neapolitan language, and we celebrated that moment. That's a memory that I have. I just feel I wanted to share with you. It was the one that came to mind when I said I want to tell people about Mario. There was another occasion that provided insight and understanding. We were laughing so that tears came down from our eyes during that episode. But this one, the tears of a different sort came as a result of our little interaction with each other. Mario was, he came into my office during the break of a conference, and he had to let me know what a stressful time he was going through about something that seemed to surface at the conference proceedings. And he had to tell me about it. And he said that he was upset because there was some questioning, or there was almost it was a disturbing reaction that he got from members of the conference when he kept constantly referring, and probably fiercely bringing it into the discussion, his agrarian country life upbringing in Italy, and how it explained whatever they were discussing. And he felt that he had been challenged and mocked. And he didn't make a fuss about it, but you could see that it was a stressful time for him. And he described how he had been helped to get over being so disturbed about this during the break when Lino Pertilli, a renowned professor of Dante at Harvard, who was at the conference, came in to him and simply went over to his desk and reached under from where Mario was looking, and put his hand down. He put out an outstretched hand down onto the site where he could cite it at his desk, and said to him, and I asked somebody to make sure I said it correctly, if I was going to be quoting Lino Pertilli. Questo è la mano di un figlio di un contadino. And whatever, that sort of wiped away whatever was disturbing Mario. He felt verified. He felt he had a compatriot that understood it, these two scholars, and that he knew what Mario was trying to do and would always be trying to do. He often talked about how much he appreciated Lino's sensitive understanding and touching manner of displaying sympathy for what was deeply meaningful and valued by Mario. And he had to share that with me. Okay, let's see. I could go on and on. One of the things that I remember very fondly, too, about just being here with Mario was his encounters with students. And we have one who came today, came from his class situation. It was Raul. Raul would just come in here and Mario would say, "Way," and he'd want to grasp him, and he'd want to talk with him for a while. And maybe you can say what it meant, those moments.
Hello? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah, okay. Hello, my name is Rahul Prasad, and as some of you probably guessed, I'm a first-year medical student at New York Medical College, and I graduated from Stony Brook University in 2020. Before I graduated, though, I had the privilege of spending 3 years as Professor Mignone's student, to the point where I can definitely call him my mentor and probably the third grandfather to me. So, as a student, and only having known him for 3 years, I probably do not have as many experiences as the rest of you and have known him as long. But despite that, I hope what I can speak about Professor Mignone will touch all of you and explain what I think we're all thinking in our hearts right now. When I arrived at Stony Brook, I was nervous, I have to admit. I was leaving home for the first time. I didn't really know anyone else who was here. And as a medical student, and pre-med student, I should say, I was very, very nervous about my GPA, because you need that to get into med school these days. And passing my classes, more or less, because it's going to be a different type of class here. When I was planning my schedule, on a whim, I picked something to fulfill the humanities requirement. That was Professor Mignone's Introductory to Italian Studies class. I didn't know what I was going to expect there, but from the moment I walked into the first class at Javits, I could sense that unlike the chemistry classes before, something was different. There was an air of enthusiasm, of progress, if you will. I didn't know where it came from, but when I first saw Professor Mignone speaking at the mic, I could tell it was because this man was in the room. And it was very enthralling to me, I have to admit. So after that class, I went to go talk with him and say, I really enjoyed your class, and ask him about what we're going to learn. And I remember him telling me, we're going to learn about Italian culture, but not just that, on how to apply it and appreciate it in your life. And as I went through classes with him, I really did learn how to do that. And I know how to do that because in the winter, despite being a freshman and not having as much experience here, Professor Mignone asked if I wanted to come to Italy with him in the winter of 2017. I took him up on that offer. And for about 2.5 weeks, I spent it there with him, Professor Luigi Fontanella, and one other professor, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name right now. But while I was there, I could definitely see how much I learned from him, how much passion he had in driving these projects, and especially considering he told me for the last 30 years he had been doing this nonstop for every time. And that really struck a chord with me just to see how much of a true visionary he was. And the next following year, I served as his TA, where I got to see behind the scenes about what he would do for his classes and how much effort, which I did not even imagine he could have done, he put all of that into his class. And being able to help him with that really touched me as well. But again, as Joe mentioned earlier, when I would just feel like I wanted to talk to someone, get advice on how to go through college, even go to medical school, I always knew I could walk through that door over there and walk a few doors down the hall and go into his office if he was there and speak with him. I can't really say how many times I talked with him because other than not enough and too many, not instead of too many. But one thing when I was driving here I did think about is when I wear this white coat, I am graduating from Stony Brook as a history major, which I had not planned on doing. I can all attribute it back to him. He had that way of bringing out the best in you and making you look at yourself and see not what you are, but what you could be, and help you go along that path of life which you've chosen. And I think I speak for all of us when we say, regardless of how much time we've spent here with him, whether that's big or small, we all came here today because he touched us in some way. And he has helped us, he passed on something to us as we go through life, regardless of where it may take us. So to everyone here, I'd like to say, when we look at the future and what's coming next, let's recall that, thanks to Professor Mignone, we all look at it very differently than when we before knew him. And as we continue to go forward and do the same for other people, we can say that it's because Professor Mignone was there with us, and he passed on something which we will pass on to other people.
It was a surprise to have him show up today, and I'm so glad he did. That's certainly compliments that I cannot. I don't. This isn't prepared, Joe. But what shall we say about our working together as a memory with Mario?
I was very fortunate. May I stand up?
Please, please. These are things, moments to be shared, as I said.
I was very fortunate to know Mario Mignone for all these years. He was a light out of heaven, okay? I hired several people in the department and so on, but when he came on, he had a vision right off the bat, and you could see it in his eyes, and so he became one of the best teachers we ever had. And now you're hearing all the wonderful things that he has done over the years. I'm just sorry that I retired years ago, and I could not come back to the university because I was not feeling too well and so on. But I always say to myself, you're so lucky to hire a person like Mario Mignone, because he had a vision that I didn't see in anybody's eyes of all the teachers that I hired. So I want to thank you all for recognizing that too, and God bless him, and God bless all.
I always said whenever we were doing things together that Joe and Mario were brothers I never had. They made it possible for me, and I hope I made it possible for them to do many things.
Very good. Thank you.
And how shall we sum this up? How shall I sum this up? I can only think about the way Mario might have summed up when he wanted to say, it's over, it's finished, it's done, you did good, whatever it is, tutto al posto, perfetto, he would say, perfetto. And that's how I think of him whenever I think of being with him.
I thought I would start by saying, you must be wondering, what is this Indian doing among Italians? But Rahul already preceded me. But I feel at home. I don't feel nervous, because this is like a big Indian wedding. So people are so friendly with each other, so informal, so supportive of each other. And this is a wonderful community, and it's a wonderful set of values. And so thank you all for coming together to celebrate our friend Mario's legacy. Senator LaValle, I don't know if the comptroller is here. Probably not. Matteo, Giuseppe, and many of our friends whom I won't name, Joe, and of course, Lois. Distinguished guests, friends, colleagues, it's a privilege for me to join you in paying my tribute to my precious friend, one of my dearest friends, Carissimo Mario Mignone. I came to know Lois before I met Mario. Lois had the misfortune to be a student of mine when I had just started teaching about 42 years ago. She not only survived that, but went on to make a mark in her own right. I got to know Mario more closely when we started slowly and laboriously putting together an India Studies program starting approximately around 1995. It was clear that in those days of severe budget cuts and what is new, we could not depend on the state to create or grow a new program in India Studies here. It was also clear that an isolated course on India now and then would go nowhere. We needed a program, a structured set of courses, like a minor or a major, courses that would draw sufficient enrollments by being recognized as fulfilling the core curriculum requirements, and funding for faculty who would teach these courses, and above all, an institutional home, a local habitation and a name. In short, we needed a center for India Studies. As we looked around, there was only one model, and that was Mario's Center for Italian Studies. While all the other centers were purely centers supported by federal research grants, focusing on academic research in science and technology, and having little to do with either teaching or humanities or the community, Mario's Center stood out as a bright exception. It was exactly what we had in mind. Its mission was rooted in academic excellence, but with an equally strong commitment to community values and aspirations. I invited Mario to join our very first breakfast meeting of Indian Americans that was attended by our beloved university president at that time, Shirley Strom Kenny, and many senior administrators and faculty members, as well as leaders of the Indian community, and as it turned out, Senator Ken LaValle. It took courage and commitment to start an institution that makes no apologies for being a spokesman for an ethnic culture or a community, and that's what Mario had. Not an easy thing to do in a skeptical and cynical academic atmosphere that fiercely opposed any initiative that smacked of ethnicity. We exchanged notes, Mario and I, on so many issues and problems, and his advice and support to me were crucial in creating a long-range plan and establishing a permanent endowment for our center, like you saw Matteo talk about with the Italian Center, and creating a prestigious endowed chair. His was the very first in our College of Arts and Sciences, and ours was the second. He was, as always, clear about the historic significance of such developments. As he said in an email to me, "Thank you for the chance to talk and share ideas about the centers and the endowed chairs. Both carry a lot of ethnic pride, and we must protect that. He was quite clear about that from the very beginning. He was a role model. He was my role model. I learned so much from him. When we were talking, it was very clear that we had to depend on the Indian American community to raise the necessary funds. In building relations with the community and the donors, and in representing the needs of the program to the community, and the needs of the community to the administration, Mario's example was a great resource. Because our center is just directly above his office here, he and I used to visit each other often. And Joe used to help us with all kinds of beautiful coffee and cookies and so on. I came away from each meeting with him more impressed with his energy, his dedication, his smart strategic planning, and his firmness in holding his ground, his refusal to yield to the demands of the administration. We made common cause whenever there were issues that we felt we should fight, the good fight together. For example, when the college tried to merge all the language departments into one, separating the languages from their cultural and literary contexts, we had to oppose it, and we did it vocally, vociferously, and bluntly. Once I called the department the dean's proposal stupid in a large meeting of department chairs and faculty, and the audience was stunned because the dean herself was there. After the meeting, Mario came up to me and congratulated me effusively. Another time, we had to resist the university's efforts to streamline the budget by micromanaging our income and expenditures. And Mario insisted that the units that brought in the money should have the final say in how it was spent, while being a good public citizen of the university and supporting other units. So again, to quote from one of his emails, I'm very frustrated with the request from the dean. First, we need to raise the funds, and then we need to justify how we spent it, going back to 3 years, detailing every penny. Sometimes we have 2-3 events per week. It is insane. I don't have the time to go over the record. How are you handling it? What impressed people the most was his total dedication to his mission. The center was his baby and his other wife, as people have said. And his mission, he was indefatigable in its promotion and its protection. Because, believe me, even patently good causes like this center need to be nurtured and protected, not the least in their infancy, but even in their adolescence and adulthood. There are all kinds of predators. Academia is no exception. In fact, those who know it from the inside know that this is perhaps a prototype of such internecine sniping and snapping. As they say, success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. Centers are no exception. Especially when people see that there are funds. They are eager to offer plans on how to spend it, even though they had no role in bringing any. And the administration is always looking to take away your money and put in all kinds of oversight. And Mario was very particular about protecting the funds and making sure that it is spent for the purposes for which they have been collected. And so he felt an obligation to the donors and to protect that relationship. We worked together on many projects. Some of them are still to be accomplished. For example, I'll mention a couple of them. We co-sponsored a conference on Guido Gozano, and we planned to hold a large conference on India and Italy. I'm sure it will come one of these years. And we tried to invite Jhumpa Lahiri who has been writing in Italian as well as in English, to give a talk here, but she turned out to be a little too expensive for us. But we will bring her. We'll bring her one of these days. We plan to bring out a festschrift in honor of Shirley Kenny. And I suggested that I would link my scholarly linguistic interests with Shirley's vision of pluralism and diversity. And he said that that's exactly what we need. And we talked about several other things. I will go quickly. And his extremely successful study abroad program in Italy were an inspiration for our own study abroad program. And of course, we went to many, Mario and Lois came to several of our galas, annual galas, and he said very kind things to us about them. But I've saved the best for the last. I was profoundly touched when Mario once, out of the blue, said that he would nominate me for the highest faculty honor that the university can offer, and that is the rank of a distinguished professor. He not only nominated me, but also undertook the enormous task of putting together a file, getting letters of letter reference from authorities from around the world and from the community leaders and so on and so forth, and Joe had a lot of work in this, I know. He shepherded this project at every stage, from the college level to the provost level to the dean's level to the president's level to the SUNY administration level, vice chancellor's level, and the SUNY board of trustees level, and brought it to a successful conclusion. Why anyone would want to undertake such a gargantuan task for someone else, not one related to him, not in his department, and one who could not do anything in return for him? Such is the nature of a noble soul, doing good for others without expecting anything in return. There is a famous saying in India, this one is mine and that one is other. Such is the thinking of little minds. For the truly generous person, the entire world is a family. Mario embraced people, transcending color, creed, ethnicity. Such was his commitment to universal values and generosity of spirit. He was very fond of me and Meena. He always called me Shikaripur Sridhar. He said Meena and we were his exceptional friends. All of it, again, showing his generosity. We enjoyed the wonderful alfresco get-togethers at your house, and every year, and it was clear how beloved he was, both in the university community and in the Italian-American community as a whole. This was also clear from the enormous flood of people who came to pay their last respects to him. I am glad that this center has organized this conference to show as a token of our respect and gratitude to this great soul who worked tirelessly to better the world around him. It's a fitting tribute to a scholar and an institution builder and a wonderful human being. I will end with a quotation from the American poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, who says in his poem, A Psalm of Life, lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Long live your legacy, Carissimo Mario.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Ludovica ROSSI-PURINI, and I'm advisor in the Center for Italian Studies. We are here to remember and pay homage to Mario Mignone, an illustrious professor, an erudite and original intellectual, an enthusiastic organizer of cultural events, and above all, the friend who allowed me to get to know the Center for Italian Studies, and I'm Italian. It was 2012, and I was contacted by Mario Mignone as I was in charge of organizing a photographic exhibition of Giovanni Falcone in the 20th anniversary of his barbaric assassination for the Italian embassy in Washington, D.C., and the center also wanted to host an event. I remember our first meeting at Rick Nasty's office. Mario's enthusiasm as he talked about the center and the importance for the students and visitors to learn more about the history of the mafia and the men who fought to defeat it totally made me feel conquered. That same year in December, the center organized an important conference on Giovanni Falcone, which saw the participation of Pietro Grasso, future president of the Italian Senate, and other important institutional positions, such as Stefano D'Ambrosio and Giannicola Sinisi. Later, I joined the Center Advisory Council, and I was able to collaborate with Mario in many other projects. What Mario left me is a personal and professional legacy that cannot, however, live apart. Mario Mignone's life represents an important example of how to affirm one's ideas and how to build a legacy of thought on knowledge and enthusiasm. Our knowledge, our original ideas, nothing can change if we don't not constantly affirm them with courage and enthusiasm. And in this, Mario was a teacher who strongly encouraged us to try to live as a demigod and not as brutes. Those qualities that some human beings have of a desire to explore unknown worlds, to discover new fields of interest, and to open new horizons for others to share, were the same as he had and always affirmed. In this regard, I remember a private meeting with the then Minister of Culture of the Italian Republic, Dario Franceschini, in New York, in which Mario, with bright and smart eyes, explained how the so-called Italianità is closely connected to the intellectual strength and artistic beauty that led to the very creation of the United States of America nation. Mario transmitted the same enthusiasm to his students when, in the weeks he spent in Rome, he visited the Galleria Borghese, for example, with them, or introduced them to the Roman cuisine. And how can we forget the evening spent on the rooftops of Rome, in which Mario, with his wonderful wife, Lois, told me about Edoardo De Filippo, or the enthusiasm with which he crossed the entrance of the Sala della Regina in Montecitorio to present before an important institutional audience one of his books. In the history of my family, there was an episode of emigration to the United States, and it did not have an happy ending. But through the friendship and the passage of knowledge that I had with Mario, I can say that I have learned to look at this ancestor of mine as one of the many who left his country in search of more propitious horizons, and who lost his own life in a mine. His personal experience fits fully into that story for which Columbus and Columbus Day are celebrated with pride, because they are evidence for Italians of their legitimacy in their country from the beginning, and a recognition of their contribution in making America. In the process of making America, sacrifice and pain in different forms and shapes were endured by many. I took this quote from the essay written by Mario Mignone in honor of Shirley Strom Kenny, president of Stony Brook University, 1994-2009. Thank you, dear Mario, for having wanted to have me among your friends, and for having me as a collaborator in some of your intellectual adventure. Thanks to you, I looked at America in a different and more personal way, and I felt more proud of being Italian. So, thank you. I now have to present two personal recollections. The first one is given to me by Stefano D'Ambrosio, an Italian magistrate and politician, currently deputy prosecutor at the Court of Bologna, in honor of Mario Mignone. Dear friends, I have accepted with great pleasure to participate at this event in honor of Mario Mignone. I have met Mario following an invite I received from Ludovica ROSSI-PURINI in 2012 to come and speak about the fight against terrorism here in Stony Brook. I was welcomed by a warm, kind and nice Italian professor, Mario Mignone. A professor uniquely intelligent and culturally prepared. He made me and my colleague Piero Grasso immediately feel like home, head of the Italian anti-mafia office. During another trip to New York, Mario and his wife invited me and my family to their home, offering his warm and much appreciated Italian-American hospitality. In 2013, I had the honor to be elected as a member of the Italian Parliament, while Piero Grasso was appointed as member of the Senate. Hence, Mario found himself having two dear friends at the two Italian parliament institutions. In fact, driven by an admirable, unstoppable willingness and desire to offer his students the best, he came to visit me with one of his classes, and together we organized a seminar on religious integration and international security. On the latter, me and Mario discussed extensively to better comprehend which dangers American citizens were facing because of Al-Qaeda. Mario used to tell his students that after the invasion of Iraq in 2004, Americans were unfairly criticized by the international public opinion. It was unjust because the cause of the conflict was a real worry that Saddam Hussein was financing Al-Qaeda. The answer of USAID military victory were the proof that the U.S. government took care of the world security against all the risk that terrorism brought. U.S. is in history as the country that guaranteed peace and stability to the world. Mario brought Stony Brook, its second family, to the heart of the Italian Parliament, realizing one of his dreams, introducing the Mignone family to the very top of his beloved Italy public institution. Also, me and my family, we had the privilege and honor to be invited to Mario's house, where we got to know better his outstanding wife, Louise. Mario, to me, was one of the best examples of an Italian expatriate to the U.S. and reaching all the people he got to work with. This was by Stefano D'Ambroso, and now a text by Lucia Pasqualini, an Italian diplomat who for some years had the position of Deputy Consul of Italy in New York. So in memory of Mario Mignone from Lucia Pasqualini. One of the first persons I met when I arrived in New York was Professor Mario Mignone, director of the Center for Italian Studies in Stony Brook University. I had a very vivid memory of that first meeting. Lisa Calello, the Consul General personal assistant for over 30 years, briefed me about Stony Brook University and Mario Mignone's role in promoting the Italian language and culture in the United States. As Deputy Consul of Italy, I was in charge of the cultural sector. After that first meeting, I visited the Italian department of Stony Brook University, and over the following years, we cooperate together in many activities. Thanks to Mario, I had the opportunity to understand the American academic system better. He was not only a great professor of Italian language, but he has also had a subtle sense of marketing, something unusual for an Italian academic. I remember that he always had very fascinating and attractive names for his courses. Mario also introduced me to extraordinary people, and in particular to Rick Nasty, who became a great friend of mine. Mario had the great capacity to connect people together and realize incredible initiatives. He was full of enthusiasm. He loved his job tremendously. It was his life mission. I'm very grateful to Professor Mario Mignone. He taught me so many lessons, and I owe him some of my best memories in New York. So, thank you to all to listening to that. I'm sorry, I'm going to leave. I have a flight to get back to Europe, but thanks to Mario that I'm here, and Ad Maiora for everybody, and let's keep his legacy in our heart and our souls. Bye.
between yesterday and today, a lot has been said very intelligently by many people about Mario's autobiography. However, an Italian contemporary philosopher, Adriana Cavarero, and I'm condensing in one sentence his thought, she said that we cannot write our own life. We need other people to write about us. And I think that's what really has been happening. All of you have rewritten Mario's story and history in a much broader and richer way. So I think this is one of the greatest results of yesterday and today's getting together. I don't want to call it a conference or meeting. So I'm going to add a few personal comments. I didn't know Mario. I knew his name. When in 1992, when I was professor at Cal State in California State University, and I was doing research on Christopher Columbus, which has been named many times today. I'm sorry if I name him again. I was doing research on Italian epic poems that actually failed in celebrating Columbus. So I did not come for the symposium, but I knew he was going to publish the one volume of Forum Italicum. So one day I just called him, and this very important, famous professor, he answered the phone. So this was already a great sign of his personality. I didn't have to go through 4 or 5 different secretaries. He answered the phone. And I said that this is what I'm doing. He said, okay, great, sure, send me the article. And he published it. This is how honest really his intellectual approach was. And another little memory I was at an Actifel conference, which is one of the major for language teaching. And there was Joe Tursi, who at that time was the president of ATI, the International ATI, and Lois and Mario. And I was a kind of new, and I was very intimidated. I saw the 3 of them walking around, and I really wanted to talk to them, but I didn't. But then in 2000, after many years, I became full professor in California. Then in 2004, I came here. And that's when Mario became a real wonderful colleague. Every conference, every activity that he organized, he shared with me and my other colleagues. He never had an event without asking me, do you want to do a paper? Will you chair a session? So I felt really a part of all that he was doing. He helped a lot also with the Italian courses. When a few years ago we went through some major crisis, like it has been mentioned, and with the center he was able to help, and we were able to continue with at least the number of courses we had. And he also helped completely in the creation of a new course that we were able to do only one time, because then we didn't receive more funds, and it was Italian scientist, which was very new. And we had an Italian-American doctor, Dr. Edward Kalpas, teach the course that was very successful, and unfortunately we were not able to repeat it. It was a very good way to give another additional image of Italy and Italian culture. And I was very proud when working together, and the more we got to know each other, every once in a while I did something and he said, Irene, ottimo. I loved it. It made me feel so good. I still can't hear that word ottimo, and I think of Mario. So that was Mario the colleague. Mario the professor. I teach Italian, but I also am in charge of the preparation of language teachers. So for that, I go to just about all the high schools on Long Island, and where there are Italian teachers, every single one has been Mario's student. And they remember him. I can't even name it. The line would be from here to the parking lot. But I just, Thursday, 2 days ago, And they didn't know I was coming here. You know, I went to Longwood High School, and the teacher there, oh, Mario, I'm still reading his books all the time. I'm still learning about the Italian culture. I use it in my classes. I mean, this is just Thursday, the last example. Still, as a professor, you already heard that he brought students to Italy all the time. And I did not directly teach, but I participated, and I was invited sometimes to some like special presentation. He was like indefesso. He just would never be tired. He brought the students all over Rome and then all over Florence. And most of all, I think, it was his enthusiasm that really affected, and like we heard one of his students, that thank you, it was beautiful. Is really with a great enthusiasm that never diminished. And the students knew this, they felt it. Everybody, you know, we talked about the Mario, the fundraiser and organizer of events, so I'm not gonna add much about that. But what I wanna say is that all of this that he did, all the publications, we talked about it, all the teaching that we've been praising, the fundraising that we know it's a lot of work, it's a full-time job. Mario did it all these years without any release time from his regular teaching. It was only, I think, the last year when he was contemplating retirement that he had some release time from teaching. So that is really remarkable, even in itself. All of this, I have to say, though, there is a say, behind every great man there is a woman. I don't like that because it means he's behind, right? But in Mario's case, there was a woman next to him, not behind. I don't think Mario could have done all this without Lois. I'm going to conclude with a kind of a funny note. Mario the friend. So I said Mario the colleague, Mario the professor, Mario the fundraiser, Mario the friend. Because although I said years ago I was intimidated, we became very good friends. Lots of lunches and dinner and working together. When I came here in 2004, and then I married Luigi Fontanella, Mario kept saying, thank God, because ha messo la testa a posto. And I don't know many times he said that. No, it was not. He meant it in a very good way. And Luigi took it in a good way. So Mario designed a path for all of us. Now, I don't know if we can follow his footprints, but we can try, okay? So let's look at the future and let's try.
Wow.